Quasi-soldiers are civilian military families who take care of the home front while their soldier spouses or kin are deployed at the war front. But just what exactly is the impact of deployment on KDF military families left behind?
And how do they cope when a soldier is killed in action, missing in action, taken as a prisoner of war, or presumed dead? Well, tonight, our special report, Quasi-soldiers, explores those questions through the lives of two families of soldiers who went to war in Somalia and have never come back.
Every sovereign country will have a military. And that military, if it's not being served by your brother, it will be served by mine. If it's not by your husband, it will be somebody else's husband. If it's not by your son, it will be somebody else's son or daughter. This job is risky, but somebody needs to do it.
I want to continue remembering my son, because I do believe that my son is still living.
Kumbe watu wakiishi vizuri huko juu, wanaona kila kitu iko sawa. Hawajui wenye wako na shida, hawaelewi. Hiyo uchungu sisi tuko nayo hawaelewi.
On 15th January 2016, Al-Shabaab carried out its deadliest attack on the Kenyan-run Amazon base in Elade, Somalia. For Maurice Kirui and his wife Miriam Kimangut, the agony of that day is one they continually relive. Their son, Senior Private Shadrack Yegon, aged 29 then, was in the camp that was overrun. To date, there is no official report of what happened at Elade, how many soldiers died, how many were taken as prisoners of war, and how many escaped and how many survived.
We will fight them deep in their hideouts, we will smoke them out of their caves, and we will follow them to the end in honor of every drop of blood of our fellow Kenyans. And I plead again with you, we will tell you the figures as we go along.
Senior Private Shadrack Yegon was last seen here in his Endebe's home in Trans Nzoia County on 20th December 2015 before leaving for Somalia. And after the Elade attack in January 2016 up until now, for the family of Shadrack, that lack of closure is a reality they live with every day. Kirui, Yegon's father, tells us that his son made contact after the attack.
My son was not caught up in the attack. So they escaped and walked. They went up to a place called Lakole. Then I think they slept even there that Friday. So on Saturday, the following day, they had no community, they had no phones. So there was no way they could communicate to anybody. So a passerby, a Somali, who had a phone, gave them. And then they talked with us that they were there, they were still alive, and they would want to be rescued. So we made efforts to send the same number they had called us to KDF headquarters.
Akaniambia, mama, mimi Shedi niko hai. Na tumekimbia tuko wanne, tumekimbia 42 kilometers. Mali naita Lakole. Ambia jeshi Nairobi wakuja watuokoe na ndege. Saa hii usiku hii. Kwa sababu mali tuko mali hatari sana. Sasa sijui nini ilifanyika hapo mpaka leo hii. Nashindwa. Shida zako utaambia nani? Ni Mungu tu sasa ama wapi? Unataka juli yako na kuulisia ngapi walipotea? Watu 12. Wenye wako missing kwa kambi gani? Wanasema tu ya Moi Barracks.
Shadrack Yegon did not choose the army chose him. He tried out for the prisons and AP police recruitment just after writing his KCSE in 2006. He initially planned to study literature and geography at Moi University, but his parents could not afford it. In 2007, albeit reluctant, Yegon enlisted at the West Pokot recruitment exercise.
Akapass 28 mwezi wa 5 tarehe 23. Tukaenda Eldoret, pasa sauti yake, kaendelea kufanya hiyo kazi Kenya alikuwa anatufanyia Mambo makubwa sana.
He could now pay fees for his siblings. He was planning to marry and had bought land. While deployed, he could communicate with his parents.
My son liked his work. And his seniors also liked him very, very much.
Hata siku hiyo walikapcha Kisemayo akaniambia, usiku mama, nilipigie simu akaniambia usinipigie. Kitu yuko uniombee tu. Tumesingirwa na adui. Nikipona mpaka kesho asubuhi, sitawahi kufa tena.
In December 2015, Shadrach came home from the battlefield.
Nikapata yeye na pombe. Nikamgombanisha, sasa tulikuwa na hasira naye. So alienda kama ananiambia shida yako ujui shida yenye napitia. Najaribu kutoa hivi vitu nikikumbuka rafiki yangu alikufa nikiwa kwa shimo na yeye. Nikikumbuka yeye na wengine inanipea mawazo mingi.
To us as KDF, nothing has changed. We'll keep hitting them irrespective of which name they use.
Colonel Cyrus Oguna was the public face of the Kenya Defence Forces when the incursion into Somalia began in 2011. He answered questions and gave updates on the army's activities. When KDF officially joined the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, he was no longer as visible. His research submitted to the University of Nairobi in 2016 in fulfillment of his master's degree is titled Whose Peace? The Impact of War on Military Families. Quasi-soldiers are civilian military families who take care of the home front while their soldier spouses are deployed at the war front during Operation Linda Nchi. Immaculate Kukubo is both a quasi-soldier and member of a military family. She knows too well what it means to live life on the edge. She founded Heroes Oasis, which since June 2016 has been providing psychosocial support to families of soldiers.
The families feel that KDF is a bit detached from the realities that the families go through. It feels like they were only interested in the soldier. So even for the soldiers who unfortunately die under the enemy's fire, once they are buried, then at that time, the family was just left on their own. At least for now, these days they assign a specific officer to that particular family.
The Kenya Defence Forces employs counselling psychologists to deal with the psychosocial support of the soldiers. Dealing with sudden and violent death takes a heavy toll on families, and when a soldier goes missing in action, that is, removed from the control of his forces due to enemy action, but not known to either be a prisoner of war or dead.
Nikitaka leta mawasa ya kwamba alikufa. Hiyo kitu inakataa kabisa. Alafu ajabu, namuona tu anakuja na bagi yake na ninamkimbilia.
The Defense Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo is quoted on international news outlet CNN saying, and I quote, "Information surrounding the attack needed to be handled carefully and meticulously for the benefit of the families of our soldiers," end of quote. But this strategy of silence left Al-Shabaab to push their propaganda.
It is traumatizing. There is one wife of such a missing soldier who told us she wanted to go to Somalia herself to go and look for her husband. KDF does its best to try and rescue these soldiers who are missing wherever they are. I know they have their ears on the ground in terms of collecting intelligence. It is not that it's very easy for the locals in Somalia to cooperate with KDF.
For 44-year-old Rose Jepkoech, 23rd July 2011 is a date that is frozen in time. It was when her husband, Sergeant Jonathan Kipkosgei Kangogo, went missing in action. Not a day would pass without him calling to check up on his wife and their 3 children. That day,
walikuwa wanatumwa kuchukua reserve food kwa askari ambao walikuwa mpaka ya Kenya na Somalia. So katika harakati za kwenda huko walipotea njiani na tukapata kuambiwa ya kwamba walikuwa kidnapped by Al-Shabaab. Sasa tulipoambiwa hivyo, tangu hiyo siku mpaka saa hatujawahi onana naye na hatujawahi sikia habari yake.
Raising their children has been very difficult.
Hii mziko peke yangu ninaweza. Sometimes najipea tu moyo nasema Mungu anajua. Huyu kijana alipotea, mama yake akawa mgonjwa. So wakati amekoncheka juu ya kuwasawasa juu ya mtoto yake, akakuja tukakaa na yeye hapa for 8 good months. Huyo mama akaaga.
In 2011, when the incursion began under the Kibaki administration, the government had a policy that is still characteristic of the Kenyatta administration.
We don't negotiate with terrorists. Na Uhuru na Ruto juzi vile waliingia nini? Ushukana. Hao watu walipotea enzi ya Kibaki. Hakuna kitu imeendelea na hatujawahi sikia hao wakiulizia mambo ya kupotea kwa askari.
If that option was available, they would even dispose whatever property they have just so that they can get their loved one back. So even if that option was availed by the enemy, it wouldn't be approved by the government for the families to get into such an engagement.
To cope, Rose concentrates on her farm and learning to drive. According to the KDF personnel policy, families should access services such as medical, housing during deployment without any hindrance. Other services provided include burial service in the event of death. Respondents in the study, however, expressed dissatisfaction with medical and compensation services. According to the respondents, families got frustrated when seeking medical services at unit facilities during the soldier's absence compared to when the soldier was present.
Wakati mwingine walikuwa wanatuita for counseling. Tumekuwa counsel karibu mara, nikikumbuka karibu mara 2. Alafu pia msaada ambao tumekuwa tukipewa mshahara ya kijana.
KDF has an elaborate system on compensation. However, many families interviewed expressed frustration with the handling of the benefits and the compensation process.
According to KDF rules, they say a soldier who goes missing, he stays for 7 years. At the same time, his name is in the file. So he stays for 7 years before he's declared, maybe he's dead. But when we went to Nairobi, we discussed, we saw that there was no need. They said that let it be 3 years. Let it come to 3 years, we compensate you.
Hata wanipe mamilioni ngapi, hakuna siku takuwa sawa na mtoto yangu. Heri hiyo pesa ipote na mtoto yangu apatikane. Sitamani, ni vile tu sharia yao, lakini sitamani ama sitarajia niko naenda pewa pesa ya mtu mwenye amekufa.
Walikuwa wanasema wana apply nini? Presumption of death certificate. Hiyo ni vitu ile ilikuwa inataka ichukuliwe kotini. So unajua kotini lazima kuna hii kitu inaitwa affidavit. Hiyo. Sasa hiyo ndio nilikuwa naenda kusaini kwa DOD headquarters. Ndio wa process hiyo. Wakiprocess hiyo, kama wakipata hiyo certificate ati inachukua 3 months. Wakipata wanaanza kuprocess hiyo benefits watupe. Na sasa hiyo uhusiano itakuwa imeisha kati yetu na jeshi. Wakisimamisha sasa ati wamesimamisha salary kutoka hapo, wanajua tuko bado niko na kazi ya watoto wa shule.
Kafika mahali jeshi wakatuambia muandike kama familia barua ya presumption ya kwamba kijana ayumo duniani. Kasema maneno gani sasa? Hii maneno ya miaka 7 yenye walituambia 2017 ati tutaongoja, imekwaje tena? Muandike ya kwamba hiyo kijana alikufa, wakatupea form ya death certificate, tukajaza. Maneno ilikuwa yani nikijaza hiyo sasa silali.
Even after the 7 years and the file is closed, how does this family go on? How does the family go on? Because there are things that are not sorted out by money.
In June 2018, the government set up welfare centers for families of soldiers killed in line of duty to access their benefits and other services. Defense CS Rachel Omamo said during the first Kenya Air Force Family Open Day at Moi Armed Forces in Nairobi.
These welfare centers will be set up in all of our bases so that a widow from Wajir doesn't have to travel to Nairobi to be attended to.
Kapsa mnatuacha tunakufa tu kwa giza. Hatujui mali shida zetu tunahesaambia kwa sababu hao watoto walienda ku keep peace.
We wrote to the Kenya Defence Forces requesting an interview and to have a right of reply over the status of both Sergeant Kangogo and Senior Private Yego. Moreover, to address the issues raised about the change in compensation policy, welfare of families, and the window period before the presumption of death for a soldier who has been missing in action. At the time of broadcast, our questions were not answered.
Niko na matumaini siku moja atakuja. Mimi nitajaribu kufanya vile niwezavyo. Siku penye ataingia atatupata penye tumefika.
I believe he might be somewhere. Maybe hidden, maybe somebody has taken him as a slave to work for him, maybe something of that kind, or he's in the hands of the Al-Shabaab. So I want to ask KDF for the government to make efforts. In fact, I will kill a bull because this one will be like the prodigal son in the Bible.
Soldiers bring back the war back home with them, a different kind of war. They return to interact with family members already engaged in their own emotional turmoil. Yet, there are those who have never returned and those who won't return.
Within and beyond our borders, our families and friends have gathered together to remember, to honor, and to pay gratitude to KDF troops, heroes, and their families.
As a grateful nation, to know that while we need people to serve in the military, can we support them? The military takes care of the soldiers. Can we now ensure that their families do not suffer because they have decided to go into harm's way for our sake?
Dorcas Wangira, Citizen TV.